Hey everybody, it's Randy Wolfe. How are you doing today? We're going to talk about no money down, how to invest with real estate with having very little to no money. Don't need thousands of dollars to invest in real estate. Some of the most successful investors out there actually spend very little of their own money to invest in real estate. So I'm going to talk about that in this video. Be sure to stick around. All right, so the first thing you got to kind of understand is what no money down really means. It doesn't mean zero effort. In fact, it means that you're going to be putting a lot more effort in, particularly in a situation if you have no money. Sometimes you've got to put even more effort in to try to get deals done. And there are a variety of things that you can do, but you're going to be using other people's resources to get these deals done. So you're going to focus on leverage. You're going to leverage your time. You're going to leverage your knowledge, because if you don't have the cash, you're going to need to leverage those things. You'll need a good strategy, you'll need to network, and you'll need to really hustle. Now, one of the most common ways people get started investing in real estate if they don't have money is wholesaling. And wholesaling, you basically just find deeply discounted deals and you sell them to other investors. You actually don't sell the property, you assign your contract to other investors. And when you do that, you get paid a fee without actually ever owning the property. Now, when you get into wholesaling, it requires a lot of skill. It requires the ability to market, negotiate deals. You've got to really understand what you're doing, how to generate leads, how to close them. But at the end of the day, you really need little to no money in order to wholesale. Another option that you have is bird dogging for active investors. And so basically, this is similar to wholesaling, but you basically go out and you scout potential deals out and you get a fee to do that. And there's no contracts involved or closings or anything like that. You're basically just a lead generator. So you're going out, you're finding these deals. You basically have a good relationship with someone that you trust, and you find the deals, you hand them off, and then they put the contract together, they close, and then you get a fee for that. And in order to be a good bird dogger for active investors, you need to start building your network. You need to build your credibility, and it's great if you can have someone in your local market that you can really work with and you can really trust, and get started that way. So if you don't want to necessarily do the wholesaling route, you certainly can bird dog, and that's a great way to start as well. All right, another method, it's one of my favorites, is creative financing. So creative financing is just what it sounds like. It's getting very creative on how to finance real estate transactions. One of the most common types of creative financing is seller financing, and that is where the seller will act as the bank, and there's no need to get a traditional lender involved in the transaction. Seller financing works great. Oftentimes, if the property is owned free and clear, then it's really a great opportunity for the seller to get passive income from the property, and sometimes help them with some tax liability issues from them just getting a whole bunch of money up front. And so you can negotiate seller financing. Oftentimes, if there is a mortgage on the property, then a lot of times you can look at what's known as subject to, and this is where you actually take over the existing mortgage payments. Now, the mortgage still stays in their name. So this is something you really have to get familiar with, and you really have to get educated on how to handle this type of transaction. But in essence, you're taking over making payments, and it's a great way to get into a deal for very little to no money down. And all of these methods, when it comes to creative financing, you've really got to have a good, strong foundation and understand what you're doing. You got to be real creative with deal structuring, and you need to have just very good understanding so that you don't get yourself in a bad spot or end up putting the seller in a bad spot. By the way, if this video is absolutely blowing your mind so far, imagine where you'll be once you actually start putting these into action. And don't forget, there's one strategy towards the end of this video that nearly every real estate millionaire has used, so be sure you keep on watching until the end. All right, so another thing that you can do is actually find a money partner and you do the legwork. So basically, in that situation, you have a partnership, you handle all of the day-to-day things, the deal sourcing, the analysis, the management, all of that. You're putting in all the sweat equity, and your partner ends up providing the funds and gets equity on the returns of those funds. And so it's a pretty neat way if you have someone that particularly is more seasoned down the road, and they're looking to try to generate some passive income, some real passive investing but they got a lot of money, then this can often work pretty well. You want to make sure that you present your deals with confidence, and you're using a single, like a clear pitch deck that you can kind of explain the opportunity, explain what's going on. And it's oftentimes a good way that you can do this. Even you can raise private money and actually have just a set interest rate that you pay them, or in some instances you may need to actually give them equity or a combination of both. Leveraging private money is a great way to do transactions. Hard money lenders is another thing. Private money lenders are just regular people looking for better returns on their money. Hard money lenders, they are more of like an institutionalized, typically, like they're usually a company that does this. This is what they do, their company does. Whereas a private money lender is usually like a person that's using their own capital, or even like some of the money in their IRA. But basically, hard money lenders, if you look at that, they're focused really on the deal itself, not necessarily what's in your bank account. And they're really good when it comes to flips or like short-term investments. So if you're going to go in, I have a full series on how to do the BRRRR strategy. So if you have not yet, be sure to check that out. But like if you're doing a BRRRR strategy, you can use hard money, take down the property, do the renovations, and then refinance out into a long-term debt, like a DSCR type of loan. So you can be sure to check that video out when you get a chance. Another way that you can get involved with real estate investing without having capital is house hacking. House hacking is a pretty neat thing that you can do, because really one of your biggest expenses is housing when you think about it. So you're spending so much money on housing where you live, and so house hacking is where you live in one unit and you rent out the other. So if you're having a duplex, you live on one side, you rent out the other. Also with house hacking type of situations, you can get FHA loans. Oftentimes they can qualify for an FHA loan, and this can help you build equity while you're actually living rent-free. So imagine how much money you could be saving if you're not having to pay rent, or you're not having to pay a mortgage, and hopefully you're getting a little bit over that and making some money each month. Finally, the last thing I would say would be to invest in your education. This is the one thing that almost all real estate investors who have made millions of dollars have done this. So you really need to learn the strategies that can save you thousands and thousands of dollars. There are a ton of free resources out there. Obviously, this YouTube channel, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. All of this information I'm providing on this channel is absolutely free, and it's designed to really help you be successful as a real estate investor. Once you have continued to kind of level up with your free things, you can look at like REI meetups and things of that nature. Then you can also invest a little bit of money into things like books. There's also a ton of communities out there. I have my own personal private community that supports beginner investors. I'll put that link in the description below. You can be sure to check that out. But definitely can't stress enough that you really need to invest in your education so that you can be successful as a real estate investor. As always, I really appreciate you tuning into this video. Be sure to check out other videos on the channel, and I will see you on the next one.